This is Geometry Lesson 3.1. Our objectives are talking about constructions using compass and straight edge. We'll be constructing segments and angles. So to get us started, we're going to be talking about three terms. The first term being sketch. Sketch in mathematical terms is just doing a freehand, nothing is measured, nothing is used with a ruler or anything. So sketch would be a freehand diagram or picture. When we're talking about drawing in geometry, drawing is a little bit more precise where you're going to use a ruler to measure. So more precise, might use a ruler, have some measurements, maybe a protractor. But construction is what we're going to be doing for this chapter. So constructions are not actually measured out per se with the typical ruler or protractor. So for our construction, it's going to be based off of a compass and straight edge. And straight edge is an edge with no measurements that's straight. For our purposes, a ruler is fine. Just remember not to use the measurements on it, as we'll be using our compass more like a ruler. Okay, so the official tools, as we said, are straight edge and compass. First question is, how can you actually use the compass to be like a ruler? So, for example, if I create some sort of segment here. So here's my segment, and I wanted to have this exact length. Well, I could use my compass by just placing the pointed edge on one endpoint and my pencil on the other endpoint. And now this compass width is identical to the length that I have here. I don't exactly know the specific measurement in inches or centimeters, but I do have a duplicated width or length of that segment that I had before. So just by using the compass, I can create an exact replica. So if I wanted to duplicate a segment, I could do that same length. And that's what we'll be practicing first, is actually duplicating a segment. So let me get a segment first, and by getting this segment, we're going to be drawing it to start. And for drawing, you would use your ruler, decide how long you wanted it, make it kind of nice and neat. And then to create a duplicated segment by construction, you will need to start by using your straight edge. So I'm going to choose my straight edge. I'm just going to make a ray. And I realize that it's easy to see how long you should make it based on eyeballing it, but always make it longer. You'll want to include all of your construction methods for all of the things that you do. Alright, then I'm going to choose my compass. And I'm going to place the pointed edge on the end point of the segment we want to copy. And I'll stretch out my pencil to reach out to the other end point. Then I'm going to simply pick up my compass without changing the size, place it on my new end point, and I'm going to make an arc mark. Now this arc mark, no matter where I go around, is going to be the exact same distance of that original segment. So then I'm going to go ahead and place an end point where the arc crossed my ray, and then I could mark these two segments as congruent because they are a copy, basically just an exact copy of what I had before. Okay, our next practice is going to be duplicating an angle, making an exact copy of an angle. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a straight edge and make an angle just by drawing it. Now usually an angle will be given to you and you'll have to copy it, but let's say that this was our angle, and I don't know how many degrees it is. I could use a protractor and measure, but that would not be a construction technique. So now what I want to do is I want to construct a duplicated angle. So I need to start with a ray, and then I will take my compass and I will make an arc that goes through the given angle, or the angle I want to copy. Because it's not a segment, the width here does not matter. These rays go on forever. So I don't care how wide I make it, but just don't make it too small because it makes it more difficult to turn your compass. So you're going to make an arc that goes through both sides of the compass. Now this is creating a specific distance from the arc. That distance will have a specific width. If you notice, the closer you are, the skinnier it is, the farther you are, the wider it is. So I'm going to take that specific distance and mark it on my ray that I made. And I want to make it big enough so that I don't have to go back and try and fix it. Okay, next I'm going to take my compass and I'm going to actually measure how wide it is between those two arc marks. So I'm placing it on one of the intersections and on the second intersection. That's going to tell me the width of that angle at that specific measurement out from the vertex. I'll pick it up without changing the size, place it over here on the intersection, and make an arc mark. Now that arc mark should be the exact same as this arc mark over here. So if I take my ray again, I should be able to connect it through that arc mark intersection, and this angle here and this angle here would be identical. So I could just take my pen and mark the two angles as congruent. Okay, now with segment addition and segment and angle duplication, we might also have to create segment addition or subtraction where we're making them longer or shorter based on the two given. So you can see this statement here says segment AB plus CD. So we're going to start with a ray. I'm going to make it long enough so that I can include both of those items. And I'm going to turn this guy upside down. What I'm going to do is first measure A to B. So using my, compass, there we go. So I measured from A to B, and I'm going to place that on my ray's endpoint and mark it off. So from the endpoint to that blue mark, that's AB. Now I want to add on CD, so I'm going to start at this arc mark and measure out CD's length. So go over to CD, to make my compass a little bit wider. There's CD, place it on here, mark it off, and that would be CD's length. So here is AB from the endpoint to the first mark. The first mark to the second mark would be CD, so my two endpoints would be here at the beginning and here at the end, and that would be AB plus CD. Now you can mark this using some letters. You could pick two new letters. You could say equals EF or something, and you could put an E and an F. When you duplicate things, you can also use primes, and primes are when you put a little hash mark type thing or an apostrophe next to the letters. And so you're meaning that it's an exact copy of what you had before, but it's not the exact same thing. Okay, now so for subtraction, instead of adding onto the right, we'd want to cut back to the left. So I'm going to need my ray again. And I already have CD's length measured on my compass, so I'm going to start by marking off CD. And then I will go back and I will measure AB again. And I can start at this endpoint, or I can start over here. And I usually like to start at my arc mark. So instead of adding it onto the right, I'm going to cut it back because I'm subtracting off. So this piece here is a piece I don't want. So I'm going to cross that out. I don't want that piece. I cut it out. That was the subtraction. I'll add my endpoint here, and then I can say this equals like GH or something, and I'll put a G and an H. Alright, angle addition or subtraction is a little bit more complex. So with this one, we're going to start with a ray again. And I am going to make an arc mark through all of my pieces. So I'm going to start with angle A in the corner, the vertex, make an arc mark. I'm going to do that same arc mark in B. I'm going to do that same arc mark around my end point here. Now just so I make sure I have enough room, I might have to move this up here so you can see it better. Okay, now because I'm adding, I'm going to make it go all the way around, just so I have enough room. Okay, next stage would be to measure the width of A at that arc mark point. So I'm going to place it on the intersection and size it up based on that width. And then I will take that width over here to where the circle intersected my ray and make that first arc mark. So if I were to connect, that would just be angle A. I'm going to do the same thing over here for B. I'll measure B's width. I got B's width. I'm going to start on A's mark this time. And again, I wanted to cross that circle that I made and make another arc mark. So now I can connect this intersection back to the original endpoint, and that would be A plus B. Okay, now for subtraction, it's going to be a little bit different where we're going to cut in. So let me clear this off here. I'll start with my new ray. And I'm going to clear off these old arc marks so I can start fresh. Okay, so I'm going to take my compass. I'm going to mark it on all three parts. So on A, on B, and on my ray. Now because I'm doing subtraction, I just need to make sure it's big enough for size B because it is going to get smaller. Alright, now I'm going to measure B first because that's what came first in the statement. So I'm doing B minus A. Alright, so we've got the width of B. I'm going to bring that down here and touching it on my intersection point, mark off the width of B. So if I were to connect, that would be a duplicate of B. But now I need to subtract off A. So I'm going to start with A's width. A's width. Now I like to go off the arc mark and work backwards like I'm subtracting. So I'm going to place my compass on the intersection point from B. I'm going to make an arc going backwards. So it's like I've cut into it, so I don't want this part. I'll take my ray, my straight edge, and connect it in. So in between here is B minus A. And patty paper is another way to do a construction. It's basically like wax paper. And to get something duplicated, you would just set it over and you would take your straight edge and you would trace it exactly. And it would be identical on top of your patty paper. And these will be the problems that we practice for this lesson.